All right, so we're gonna get started. Thank you everyone for joining us. This is our first meeting of 2026 for the
Yeah.
Meaningful Day and Employment Committee on the Brooklyn DD Council. I am Pilar Jones, one of the chair members, one of the committee chair members. I'm joined by two other chair members, Jillian LeBron and Trudy Pines. We are going to be talking today, after much requests, about employment services. It's a very broad topic, lots of questions, lots of information. We do not expect to get, everything discussed today, because there is a lot of employment services nuances that, are more person-centered and specific, but we are going to give as much as we can of an introduction of the services. So let's start. Employment services typically start with after school. The transition from school life to adulthood is no different for a teenager with developmental disabilities. Typically after high school, people are thinking about what do they want to do, what are their life choices, what do they want to learn, what are the next steps, right? So choices for a student moving from school to adult life can include continuing education, getting a job, or taking part in other meaningful activities, such as volunteering and job or life skills development. So, one of the other main two things that people do after school is employment or day hab, right? That's like the two things that we really talk about the most. We're going to talk about employment today. We do have plans to talk more about the different types of employment services. But we're going to get into employment stuff today. So here are some tips for parents and students that are in the transitioning process. You should start early. It's never too early to discuss and investigate the possibilities for employment or career choice, vocational training, job training, work readiness. The conversation about employment should start while you're still in school. Talk to the school support team, transition coordinator, parent coordinator, teachers. Some schools, it's a combination of a guidance counselor or other people as well. But you should be talking about it during IEP meetings or just asking questions. Find out what are the options that exist in your community and how to apply for them. Learn about the different eligibility processes for getting services. Find out what documents you need to provide so that supports are ready and available when needed. This is extremely important because uh, employment services also fall into the bracket of transition, service. They're one of the main transition services. And when people are coming out of Department of Education services, they need to figure out, are they going to be getting other support services and their eligibility? So that step to eligibility is not only just for maintaining things like Medicaid and Social Security and, uh, maybe in-home respite. It's also for like what other services and supports the person would be eligible to receive. What is supportive employment? So typically when we talk about supportive employment, people just think job coaching, right? Get a job and a job coach goes to help you. But supportive employment is a little bit more than that. It's a general term that we use for all of the employment services that provide support to people with disabilities to help with their goal to obtain and maintain competitive employment. Supportive employment services can be provided from a variety of city or state-funded entities. Most commonly, what you'll hear is OPWDD supportive employment, aka SEMP, or you'll hear Access VR supportive employment, also still SEMP. They are the two major funding sources in New York State for supportive employment. Employment services are designed to be person-centered. There's different service tracks that may vary based on the person's experience, level of support that they need in the community, as well as their employment history. So, for example, if someone had an internship while they were in high school, or maybe they had a summer job and they did summer youth program, like those would be things that also affect which type of supportive employment service would be the best fit for them. Uh, Support staff do provide various types of job readiness training. They complete assessments to help determine which employment journey, service, or whatever steps would be the best for the person. people can receive holistic supports, meaning they could be in day hab maybe 2 days a week and working 3 days a week. Really depends on the person. Sometimes people are receiving other supports and services. Depending on which ones and how they overlap. Some cannot overlap or nor can be provided at the same time, but people can receive a holistic supports of schedules and services, which does include the different employment services. Any questions so far? Okay, I'm gonna
It's
take a second.
Carrie.
Hi, go
Hi.
ahead. I can't see you, so go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Here we go.
Yeah,
I'm still here, I promise.
it's okay.
There we go. So one thing that I know we talk a lot about for our slightly younger kids is that transition planning, including employment planning, should start about age 14.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. But one of the things that is the plan itself. So like, getting the plan, exploring what the person wants to do, but then also making a plan that's a part of the IEP about the steps they need to get there. Right? We we tend to think a big picture overall. This is what happens when they leave. But
Mm-hmm.
what do they need if they want to be a
You think
uh short order cook, right? What do they need to know to get there? What certifications? But looking at that at age 14, 15, and building it into the IEP at each step.
Yeah, I think it's a lot to ask any 14-year-old like what they want to be
Oh,
with,
yeah.
So I think it depends on the 14-year-old,
Yeah.
but some of those things like are the soft skills that we can talk about, like traveling in the community, right? If you
Mhm.
want to talk about someone employed and getting employment, in the long run, learning how to travel is one of the biggest barriers to that.
Yeah. Right.
So that's a a hard skill that people can start at age 14,
Right.
just being aware about traveling in the community, being aware about volunteering, what jobs, need, how do you communicate with people?
Right.
A resume, what's that? How do you use an email? Those are also things that people can
Right.
start doing at that age while they're in the transition planning,
Right.
which does start at 14, 15 years old.
And just for the record, I have still not figured out what I want to do when I grow up.
I have figured it out. I don't desire to work. I have to work. I
part
have
of
figured it out.
part of the 14 and 15-year-old also is like when you do a vocational, if schools conduct vocational assessments
Hmm.
to kind of figure out where they're leading towards, it's always good to explore that when they are actually, let's go a little bit further, when they're 12, 13,
Hmm.
leading to 14 and 15, so that when they're ready to participate on internships at age 16 to 18, then you kind of have an idea, right, as to
Hmm.
where their skills are at, where they should develop the community skills, self-determination, right, advocacy skills, safety skills, travel training, and it gets built, as long as you are following up in the
Right.
plan, in the transition
Yeah,
plan
exactly.
prior to determining employment.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay. So I mentioned before funding sources and eligibility. I'm sorry. Can I keep?
Hello.
Yes. Hi.
Oh, this is Monet. Hi.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is this thing about?
This is a meeting from the Brooklyn Developmental Disabilities Council. We are providing a presentation about employment services to explain them.
Is that a job they could get to any a job? No, it's that help me. Okay. The job.
Cor
Is it a job?
Correct. We're talking about the different services that help people get jobs.
That's what I wanted.
Okay. So join us for the presentation. We'll explain the different types of services that help people get employment.
Can I get paid after that job? Like a stipend or something?
We're not providing a presentation for specific
No.
jobs.
Right.
We're giving the presentation about the different types of services so
Mhm.
that people can learn about how to get a job. But yes, we hope that people get paid jobs. That's our goal.
Right. In case, because the services for people. Say it again. Pen and paper, right, services now. Okay, what? Right, the services now. Oh, sure. Well, they have to present first. Okay. Okay. I'm
All
sorry.
right. No problem.
Okay, that's wonderful questions.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Okay. So, oh no, no, I just closed my screen. No, where'd it go? How do I make it bigger?
Should be in the left-hand corner. Either left bottom corner or left top corner. There
I
should
know
be.
I went to pull it up and then it disappeared. Hold on, let me do it again. Sorry, guys.
Again.
Technical difficulties. All right, here we go.
How can I get a job though? Okay, but you have to listen first. I am.
Okay.
Okay, she's gonna tell us how.
All right.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the different funding sources. I mentioned that like there are different funding sources. What does that mean exactly? This is something that a lot of parents don't really understand, and people that we support also, have questions about this. So funding sources refer to who's providing the money to the agencies, to the providers, to let us provide employment training programs, employment training services. So the two most common, or the two top ones in New York State are, oh, there we go. Access VR, aka Adult Career and Continuing Education Services, which provides vocational rehabilitation services to people who have a disability or multiple disabilities that impact their ability to secure, retain, or advance or regain employment. There is assistance for college programs, job training, supportive employment, pre-employment training, career exploration, and work readiness coaching. Typically, it's faster paced, it's specific to time-limited authorizations, and it's less support from the staff provided to the person. Candidates must be at least 14 years old and living in New York State, able to work in the United States, meaning they have work authorization, work papers, people would say, have a disability that interferes with their ability to obtain, maintain, or advance in a job. It can be a physical, intellectual, or learning disability, and is available and willing to actively start participating in vocational rehabilitation process. Access VR is through the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education. That is where the funding comes from. That's where the money comes from. There is an eligibility process and steps to receiving the services and support. So we're going to get into that shortly. The second most common, this is what we do usually, this is most of the folks on this call because we're talking about developmental disabilities, is OPWDD, the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. Programs that are provided by OPWDD can offer an introduction to career planning or internship that could lead to a job in a community business with on-the-job supports that once you find the job, meaning like job coaching, job support, right? May be used separately or together to help you reach your goals to take part in the community. So there are different kinds of OPWDD services, which we've mentioned before. Usually, they're combined with a series of discovery-based services, such as Pathway to Employment, Community-Based Pre-Voc, Employment Training Program, which also breaks down a little bit more, but we'll get into that later. And then it is followed by the more long-term supported employment, aka SEMP, which is what everybody knows to be SEMP. Usually, it's intended for those with long-term job goals and need more support to learn work readiness. There's a variety of timeframes and goals through authorized services. Typically, you will transition to OPWDD supported employment after you have received authorization funded by New York State Access VR. I'm going to go back actually. The reason for that is basically the state entities have an agreement. The Department of Education and the Offices for People with Developmental Disabilities made an agreement. I don't know when, but they made this agreement many years ago that if someone needs to get supportive employment, they first need to do it through the Department of Education. The short answer is because the Access VR services are faster paced, shorter time frame, and less funding supports, right? So the idea is that if you don't need that much support, you don't need that much time, you should be doing it through Access because it's faster, quicker, and cheaper. OPWDD is a more long-term entity, which is also a state-funded government office, and they are going to be funding supports for people throughout the extended period of their lives. So in order to make sure that the department education gets the first grab, usually what people have to do is open an Access VR case first, do the eligibility process with them. After they do the assessment, they will determine if someone should go get long-term supports, which would be done through OPWDD, or if the person is perfectly ready to go on and continue with employment, they can stay getting supports through Access VR. Candidates for OPWDD eligibility must be at least 18 years old, for employment anyway, out of school, living in New York State, and able to work, meaning have their working papers. An individual diagnosed with a developmental disability, very specific then from Access VR, and be eligible for any and all OPWDD services and enrolled in the home and community-based waiver services. So the main difference also besides timeline and price and, hours for Access and OPW is that you must have a developmental disability to receive services from OPWDD, whereas Access, you can have a developmental disability, you can have a physical disability, learning disability, and you don't need to have a developmental disability to be eligible for their services. Any questions about that very complicated agreement that the two have made? Go ahead, Carrie.
Hello? Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, hold on.
You're too slow. Hello?
Yeah.
Um, do what do you have to do to apply?
Well, it says I have to do the Access VR review.
What is
Okay,
that?
it's the program that they have. Okay.
Did you not do that?
Yes.
Oh, how about this, Monet?
Yes.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about the services and the
Okay.
steps, right? And then when we get to the end, we can talk maybe a little bit more specifically about what you're doing, and then we can answer
I
your
want a job
specific questions.
because I want to get a job.
I know,
I know.
and we want to
I
assist,
want to get
but I don't want to talk about your personal stuff on the presentation.
Right.
So
Okay.
we'll do the presentation for a little bit. You can hear some of the information.
Hmm?
And then after the presentation, I will stop the recording so we can do some more answers about your personal stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. Go
Uh,
ahead, Carrie.
Sure, just a quick question. So you have to apply to Access VR before you can go through OPWDD for like supported employment. How old should you be?
Yes and no.
Oh,
Yes and
okay.
no. So,
How old is my real question? But yeah, let's do
at least 14 years old,
Mhm.
you can still be in school and receive
Right.
support through Access VR.
Right.
OPWDD, you cannot.
Be
So that's
18.
another
Okay.
difference between the two. Also, another difference is that if the person already has OPWDD eligibility,
Right.
right, and they apply through their care manager to a discovery-based service right away,
hmm
Mhm.
they can kind of skip the access process.
Got it. Okay.
Now, I'm
Especially
not
if the person needs more support.
right. I'm not
Right.
going to say that works for everybody because
Right.
sometimes the care manager will send the request to OP and
Mhm.
OP will say go back to access, open a
As
case.
VR. Okay.
Right? So, or sometimes they'll say, okay, yeah, we're going to put this person in community-based pre-book
Okay.
and it works. Sometimes they'll put them in ETP and then they're like, that didn't work. We got to go back to access. So there is a lot of, and my favorite thing to say about employment services is it is like a game of shoots and ladders, right? There is a lot of up and down, slide, go back to the side. But the end of the game, right, is always going to be competitive employment. We want people to
Right.
get, but the way to get there is a lot of slides, ladders, up, downs,
Yeah.
and turns.
Got it.
Absolutely. Go
Hello, you
ahead,
wanna
August.
hello,
Yeah.
you wanna just before, I'm sorry, just
Mhm.
clarify what competitive employment means.
And
Just not-
competitive employment means we're not providing people with jobs. We don't say, here's a job,
Right.
right? Providers don't say, hi, you're going to work here. Competitive employment means employment in the community, the same application process that any employer has. So if you're applying to Target, you complete the Target application,
Mhm.
you fill out, complete an interview, you have to maintain whatever Target's ethics and standards are to work at Target. Target can fire you, Target can lay you off, all of those things to maintain a competitive environment. long gone are the days where we had workshops, right? We had things that were set aside and people were in a specific
Okay.
location to complete tasks. Competitive employment also implies that it is integrated with the community, not separate from the community. Um, Thank you for making me clarify that because, as you know, a lot of people, we use our words and people don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So that is also that. With that being said, agencies like HRC or Goodwill or some of the other agencies that we work for have people that we call job developers. We have people that
Mhm.
we call like marketing people. They go out, they search, they plug our people to make sure that places like Target will hire the people we support and save space for them. So we do have agreements and partnerships in the community, and but it doesn't mean that they are entitled to a job just because they're in supportive employment. They have to get the job the same way as anyone else.
Mhm.
Okay, let's
So Laura, can
see.
I add
Yes,
in something?
yes, go ahead. Ask all the questions you have.
I wanted to, and it's on your slide, but I wanted to
Mhm.
specify, especially with OPWDD, the individual has to be enrolled in the home and community-based service waiver in order for
Correct.
them to take advantage of the supported employment and pre-vocational support.
Okay.
So that's
Correct.
something that's huge. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't know that.
Yeah. It is a waiver service, so you can use that as the waiver service, but you have to be in the service. You
Right.
have to be enrolled into the HCBS waiver. Um, but you don't have to, for example, I know like a lot of times like for like to keep the waiver, right? You like people will
Okay.
enroll in things like respite.
Right.
Uh Employment is a waiver service, so you can still keep the waiver if you're enrolled, but you have to actively be using it, right? So
Oh.
if you're not using your employment services and you're not actively
Yep.
looking for employment, your case for employment services can be closed. It's not a long-term service like dehabilitation. Like you can go for the rest of your life, and maybe take a break and then, I mean, dehabs don't love that, but employment services is much more like if you don't use it, you definitely lose it for sure.
And you also stand the risk of being disenrolled from home and community-based waiver services.
Correct.
Yes.
So
Correct.
I want
Yeah.
to add that in as well.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Okay. I'm gonna go on to the next slide. I see some questions here in the chat, maybe. Trudy, are you looking at the chat or Marjorie? I'm not sure. I can't really see.
That was mine and you answered it.
Oh, okay. Just
Oh, okay.
checking. All right, got it. Next slide. Let's go. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the steps to obtaining Access VR. This is, like we said, the first step, right? So you apply to Access VR. You schedule to meet with the Access counselor for an interview. The counselor will review your application and determine the eligibility. How do you apply? There's a paper application, there's an online application. You can contact the phone number. There's a number of ways to apply. If you need the information, we can provide it to you as well. But that's how you apply. If eligibility and service authorization is approved, you would meet with the counselor who creates an IPE, correct me, Jillian, individual
Personalized.
personalized employment plan.
Employment plan. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Or request support from an approved service provider, such as HRC, YAI, Goodwill, who will then complete the intake and make the individualized plan for you. If the eligibility and service authorization is denied, the person should explore other types of supportive employment services, such as Department of Health or Department of Youth and Community Development. I'm going to touch on those later, but there are other types of supportive employment, just so
Mhm.
people know. Typically, if someone doesn't qualify for Access VR, they would most likely not qualify for OPWDD. I don't think I've seen anyone that did or did not. Um, and maybe Jillian, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think typically if you don't qualify for anything from Access, it's not because you don't have a disability, right? It might be this a different type of disability. So like
Right.
mental health diagnosis only, or just like a youth-based like learning disability, depending on the level of IQ. But if someone goes to Access and Access says we cannot support you, you need more long-term supports, they're gonna send you to OPWDD. If they cannot support you due to those things, they're going to send you to Department of Health or some of the other city-funded entities. The staff will complete intake meetings and discuss service types, then determine the plan for long-term supportive employment and funding source, meaning is it going to be access or is it going to be OP in the long run? What's the plan? Are we going to do this assessment and then hand it off to OP, or are we going to continue to providing the supports after we do the assessment through Access VR? Staff provides the job readiness activities, the discovery, and the training based on the individualized plan that is provided by Access. Ideally, after a person completes these steps, they will be successful in obtaining a job. Now, we know that there's more steps to that and more time needed and everything and information. So, if the job placement is successful, the staff would provide long-term supports based on the authorizations, eligibility, and the level of support needed. If the job placement is undetermined, or you can't find a job, or maybe you didn't get the job that you applied for, the staff would then provide additional service options that would support someone in their long-term goal for employment. Examples, a combination of day with other discovery-based services, or refer them back to Access VR. I was going to add something about funding source, but I lost it, but it'll come back to me. The OPWDD steps. Sorry, go ahead, Rochelle.
Yeah, so what are the kind of things when you go for this evaluation
Mm-hmm.
for access? What are they looking for in particular? What do they ask people? What,
Mm-hmm.
how do people prepare?
So they ask for a series of documentation, IEP, uh,
Medical,
medical,
right.
any evaluations you might have if you have them. They ask a series of questions about the person's, level of abilities or supports. If the person has a life plan, they will, look at the life plan as well.
Mhm.
They'll interview you and most likely like whoever the person determines is their support or advocate, if they have one and they need, to ask them questions about, have you worked before? Where have you worked before? What was it? How long was it? What kind of
Mhm.
job was it? And then they also ask like about your abilities, right? Can you travel to anywhere in the city? Can you stand for long periods of time? Is there anything you are uncomfortable with, like, loud noises? Um, they try to get as much information they can just off of basic characteristic information if the person is eligible for supportive employment services.
So from your experience, are
Mhm.
they adept at working with people with, people with autism, people with cognitive disabilities?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
They
Um, yeah, I think it depends obviously on the access counselor.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
That's
also
always.
there's also the level of support. So if
Hmm.
you're going to Access VR and you're doing the interview, if they see that the person that they're interviewing needs a higher level of support, they're
Yeah,
probably going to refer you to an OPWDD services, which
right,
would be more appropriate.
Mhm.
right. And agencies are approved providers. That's what I was going to say. So agencies are provide approved providers of Access VR and OPWDD usually.
Mhm.
Like, so Goodwill can do both. AHRC can do both. So even if the person is doing the intake, notices like, okay, Access might not be appropriate for this person, they can also make recommendations. So like I know in our office, we have somebody who does the intakes for Access all the time. And as she's talking to them, she realizes like, okay, this person needs more support from maybe a day hub without walls and something else, right? So it really also depends on who's doing the intake and how forthcoming people are during their interview about the level of supports and what they, see as realistic employment goals. Uh, yes, we are gonna share the presentation. Somebody asked in the chat. We are recording this meeting and the presentation and slides will be shared. Okay. Any more questions about Access VR steps? Okay, moving on. So we're gonna go into the OPWDD steps. Again, this is also a very nuanced process. We are just discussing the basics. I think we've talked about a little bit before about eligibility previously earlier at our first meeting, like maybe like September. This is just for the purposes of talking about employment. So we're keeping it very vague on purpose for OP. Um, Front door, you need to initiate the front door. You need to select a care coordinator. There's only three. Then the front door facilitator will assist you with contacting the care manager provider, provide you with the information. Um, Front door OPWD website, you can contact it through there. There's a phone number on this presentation. And they usually email you all the steps also, or you can go to the DDRO office and talk to somebody in person. The documents that you need to submit for OPWDD eligibility there are documents that you need to submit. Psychological evaluation, psychosocial evaluation, medical, and any other document that supports that the person had a disability before the age of 22. Care managers will help find and schedule appointments for these evaluations if you don't have them, and they will submit the required documents to OPWDD. I think the care coordinators have like a intake person that they usually use, a care intake, so that's usually before you get a care manager assigned to you. If the person is approved for OPWDD services, your care manager will assist to request services that you would like to receive. This includes other OPWDD funded services such as rehabilitation, respite, employment, camp, clinical services, residential, just, to name a few. OPWDD will inform if the person has been approved for services of eligibility and for the specific service through a notice of decision. If the eligibility and service authorizations are denied, the person should explore other supportive employment services, such as Access VR, Department of Health, or DYCD. Like I said, OPWDD, you must have a developmental disability before the age of 22 um, and a certain IQ score. So sometimes people apply for OP and they're not eligible because they have a different type of disability. Maybe it's not a developmental disability. And then they can be back referred to places like Access, Department of Health, Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, the lovely library people here who support people with inclusive services, who can help people that have other types of disabilities. The care manager will assist the person supported to identify appropriate programs and make a referral for the OPWDD funded employment services. So this is that little loophole that we were talking about. The care manager can make a referral to ETP, community-based pre-voc, or pathway to employment. Those are the discovery-based services to an approved service provider. If they say, well, I'm going to refer you to supportive employment, and they send that so they say that I'm going to refer you to just straight SEMP intensive service, right? OPWDD is going to turn the person around and redirect them to Access VR based on their agreement. But if they apply for a discovery-based service, they usually can go through that way. Staff complete intake meeting and discuss the service types that determine the plan for long-term supported employment and funding source. Staff provides job readiness trainings and activities, discovery, and anything that's based on the person's plan approved by OPWDD services. Again, after completing these steps, ideally, the person will be successful in obtaining a job. If the job placement is successful, and the staff will provide long-term supports based on authorizations, eligibility, and level of support, something that we call SEMP intensive or SEMP extended. We are going to clarify those soon. If a job placement is undetermined at this step, people will usually provide additional service options that will help to support the person in their long-term goal for employment, such as putting a combination of DayHab and another discovery-based services, which they can work on their job training skills more specifically. Now, this is very brief. I did not go into all the steps. I didn't go into what kind of assessments, how long the assessments take, because one, we're going to break down a little bit more in a couple more slides, but also we just want you guys to understand this is the chain of steps, right? You have to get the eligibility, you have to request the services, and then you would get into some type of job readiness program. and hopefully job placement. Um, but if it's not successful, that some of these steps do go backwards, right? You says here at the bottom, if job placement is undetermined, you would get a suggestion to either go back and do another day hab, a day hab, or another discovery-based service. Does that make sense? Okay. Moving on. I don't know why I'm having a hard time with this presentation. Okay. Jillian, you want to cover this part?
Sure. Hi,
Okay.
everybody. My name is Jillian LeBron. I am a director of supported employment at Goodwill Services. I've been actually providing and working in supported employment since I graduated college, which I'm not even going to discuss, but that was many years ago. So this has always been my passion. And just one thing to say is that I know many parents are very scared, nervous. I'm a parent. I know that, when it came time for my child to fly the coop and graduate, it was just like, oh no, what's going to happen? This. And the best thing is for each parent or caregiver on this call is to educate yourself and know what options are available. So I'm hoping this presentation is very helpful and useful. And please make sure to feel free to, ask as many questions as you want. So what are discovery services? Discovery services is a process in order to prepare a person for work service organizations and provide variety of work readiness throughout the community, which includes different activities, assessments, interviewing processes, and it's called a discovery process. So there's different paths, and as you can see on the chart, you have what's called community-based pre-voc, right? And then this prepares people for paid employment, meaningful activities. That is time limited. It could be 2 years or more. And then you also have where providers will provide discovery in the community. Everything is community based, different work experiences, volunteer opportunities. They do career planning, unpaid volunteer work, or 14C paid experiences, which is something that New York State is trying to do away with, right? So the whole point of people with disabilities and employment, and with New York State becoming an employment first state, we want to make sure that individuals with disabilities are getting paid the same wages as everybody else. If they're going to work, they should be paid the same amount of money as a person who, quote unquote, is non-disabled. Once the person, so that's community-based pre-vocational services. Then you have another option, and again, all these services are very similar, and it's all about discovering who the person is, right? So they're vocational assessments, and everything is focused on what does the person want. We talked about it being very person-centered. So having your circle of support, it could be your parent, it could be residential, it could be a caregiver, the individual, which is the key person, your provider, and the conversations happen there. Whereas, what does the person want to do? What are their interests? What are their hobbies? There may be a setting that a person may prefer. Do they like to work inside? Do they like to work outside? All these different questions and all these different ideas are done in a discovery process, right? So this is exactly what it's called, a discovery. So it's not only for the provider to discover skills and talents of the person, but the person may discover certain talents and skills about themselves that they didn't know that they had. So we also have, so that's community-based, and then we have pathway to employment. I'm kind of jumping all over the place. I'm very famous for going off key. So I told Pilar, please make sure she
It's okay, you're
guides
doing
me
okay.
back because I could talk about employment all day. So anyway, so then we have, so let me just keep pathway to employment, creates a vocational plan, pairs people for work. That's usually 1 year. It's also discovery, community work experiences, and you develop also a vocational goal. This also includes unpaid volunteer experiences or paid minimum or paid experience at minimum wage, right? So that's the goal. As you can see, like the reason why we put this chart here is for you to see the similarities in each of the discovery programs. Then you have employment training program, which is also called ETP. Now, the one thing that people have to understand and family have to understand, in order for you to be in an ETP program, you do have to be enrolled into a SEMP program, right? So you have to be on a SEMP roster with a provider in order for you to receive employment training services. Now, the employment training program is an additional services through OPWDD. You do have a discovery process through this as well. However, this is in combination with an OPWDD liaison where the provider, the individual, circle of support, and an OPWDD liaison will have communication and discussions about the process. Is the person progressing? Are they liking it? Are they showing up? Are they being consistent? Because the one thing they want to see is a commitment, and they want to see that a student or a person is really willing to work, right? And it's also testing the waters. You know, you may try to do pathway into employment, you may try to do something vocational, and at the end of the day, it may not be for that particular person. You may be more comfortable in a day hab or, you know, a different type of setting, and it's okay, right? That's what the goal is. It's discovery. And as when we're growing up, and you know, when we graduated high school, we tried several different things. I had several, you know, I had a few jobs before I decided this was where I wanted to stay. It's no different than, you know, the people that we care for. So for ETP, again, like I said, there's a discovery process where you do the assessments. Once the assessments are completed, then you have the conversation, then they can move into job development, intensive SEMP, they can go into an internship, work opportunity. Everything, again, it's all community based. It's communication with businesses in the community. Within the ETP program, the one thing is that the individuals are paid by OPWDD. They are limited to 12 hours a week, and the wages is usually minimum wage. So whatever the minimum wage is, that's what OPWDD is going to pay that intern in their program. Once they're completed, and if there is a successful placement, the person is stabilized, there's a communication with the provider, and there's communication with the business, and they're like, okay, you know what? I am ready to put them on my payroll. The employer then officially hires the person goes on their payroll, and then we start phasing out. Again, everything is with coaches being provided. We are providing 100% supports until we phase out and we see that the person is stabilized. And during this period of time, you're having communication with the individual, you're having communication with the family, you're having communication with the business and the manager. Is this working? Is it a good fit, right? Because you also want the business to be happy. What you want, the key point is for the individual who's in this program to be happy, comfortable, feel safe, and included. Once that piece is done,
Yeah,
they move on into what's called your long-term supported employment program, which is, again, also a waiver program. Here, the individual gets the job coaching, gets the job development. There's also job placement here as well, long-term supports on the job. And we'll go more into that each slide, but I think I kind of went into it here. But
Yeah.
everything, again, is community-based. As Pilar explained earlier, competitive employment is basically the person has to be getting paid minimum wage, is an integrated employment, is not in a setting where they're just working with people with disabilities. They're included in their community, and they're at doing a meaningful activity, right? And again, they have to be paid by the business, and it has to be minimum wage or higher.
I want to add also, like, when a lot of parents and families and other, you know, other providers like teachers and stuff, they often, you know, we've been talking a lot about the steps, you know, to just get supportive employment, but also don't understand like the timeline for job placement, right? And how long these things take. So just looking at these discovery-based services, it's at least a year minimum of some type of job training that we're giving people before we even get to the green section, these
Which is
five
the
squares of
right.
job matching, like finding a job that is like that appropriate, going out on interviews, doing resume, doing anything, providing job coaching. That is like the final step, you know, before we even get to employment. We're really focusing on the purple squares, the
Yeah.
discovery, the community experiences, the volunteering, the community awareness, traveling. So when people hear supportive employment, what they often think is the job matching and the job coaching part.
And it's automatic.
But really what we want you guys to learn from today's presentation, that supportive employment really means the discovery and the training part. The other part is a given. We're gonna do that, and we hope to get there for everybody
Mhm.
with job placement and matching and helping them to get the position and maintain the position. But the part that people need a little bit more information on is how do we get them there?
Yeah.
So the purple squares are the more important squares on this chart. And we're gonna go a little bit deeper into the discovery services on this next slide. Here we go.
And just know
Yeah, a
that,
little bit more comparison between the
right.
discovery services.
So here you can specifically see the differences for ETP, pathway, and community prevo. You may notice that there are similarities in a lot, such as the timeframes or the activities. On the grid, you can compare the different discovery services based on work experience, skills, and how services are provided. To be eligible for these services, the person needs to be eligible for OPWDD services and enrolled in a home and community-based waiver. So what you want to make sure is that if you do have a care manager, the care manager has to make sure that you have long-term care attached to your Medicaid. Right? If you have long-term care attached to your Medicaid, you will be eligible for your waiver services. For ETP, who's eligible? You have individuals have some work volunteer experiences, job retention challenges, no prior discovery, or want a new career. So those are some individuals who can enter into ETP discovery. What do? Planning, discovery, job readiness skills, work experience, and then there is a complete packet that has to be done and submitted to OPWDD. All services are in the community, except for some observations. Observations can be done either in the person's home. We can do some observations in a person's day hub program, which is a conversation that you would have with a liaison from OPWD. That would be the provider. Why we do this is to complete the discovery and guide job development if recommended. So the whole purpose of the discovery is to come up with a complete assessment, a vocational goal, and it's a conversation again with a circle of support, the individual, to say what would be a good job match, what kind of setting, whether it's in a crowded space, whether it's working alone, whether it's in inside, outside, large area, small area, all these details that we really don't think about, but all the things that actually make a difference when a person is working. When it typically is 10 to 12 hours a week, up to 90 hours within 3 months to complete a discovery. So again, it takes time. And each case is very different because it is person-centered. So a person may start this process and something may happen and say, you know what, I need a couple weeks. I can't do this. You know, they may not be ready. We may put it on a pause and then come back. So again, this timeline is really minimum, but it can change based on each person's case. The next area you have is pathway to employment. Individuals have limited work, volunteer experience, but no discovery. Those would be the people that would be eligible for pathway to employment. So if you have a person who is coming out of school or again needs a little bit more supports, many of the individuals who are in day hab who don't know or have some sort of interest in employment, usually pathway to employment would be the place to go, either pathway to employment or community-based pre-voc. Very similar, you have your planning, you have your discovery, work on job readiness skills. Here you do 3 work experiences, you have travel training, benefit planning. Benefit planning is very important because a lot of parents are very, very concerned about what's going to happen with my son's or daughter or my child's benefits. You know, they receive SNAP, they receive Social Security, they may receive SSDI. Going to a benefit advisor and attending one of these classes, which is also offered in Access VR, just FYI, to discuss these questions, and they give you a lot of information in regards to how does it work? If a person works, what do you have to make? So very, very key. If you have an opportunity, please do benefit advisement or benefit planning. Then you have, sorry, I have to take my glasses off. Everything is, again, where is it? Primarily in the community. It's not done at any site-based areas, which is, you know, what was traditionally called workshops or, you know, day hab, site-based day hab sites. Why do we do this? It's to create a career and vocational plan with a goal of employment and shorter term future if recommended, right? Um, when typically 5 to 10 hours a week, wrap around current services up to 278 hours in 1 year, which I think recently they just changed that. But again, it's an opportunity and a service that if you have a person who's interested and you just have this discussion with your care manager, and again, the circle of support, pathway into employment may be the route or the path that you choose. The other waiver service and discovery program is community-based pre-vocational services. And again, like you see, everything is all discovery-based. It's all about vocational assessments. It's all about finding the skill level, having the person discover about themselves, having the provider see what would be the best fit for this person. And a person may go through a discovery. And again, like I said, they may decide, you know what, I don't want to do this. I don't want to work. I want to stay in Dayhab, or I want to stay in another different program. That also happens as well. And it's okay. Like I said, it's okay. It's all person centered. Community-based pre-voc is also individuals that have maybe a little higher support needs. It's limited work and volunteer experiences that need to build work skills, work-related skills training, discovery, volunteering opportunities, health safety skills, travel training, benefit planning again. And there's an annual assessment that has to be done in this particular program as well. Again, why is it done? To develop skills, experiences, and to gain, retain employment, which may take more than a year. Pilar, can you go down a little bit? I can't see that last. There we go. Oh,
Yeah. Hold on one second.
No, I got it.
Oh,
And
okay.
then when you have up to 30 hours a week and ongoing, maybe it is you.
It just says ongoing supported by annual
Yeah, I can't
assessment.
see it
It
from
doesn't
this side.
say it doesn't say anything else after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is just a little comparison guide, so that way everybody can see the differences and the similarities in each of the services. And the only thing that you cannot be in is you cannot be in supported employment and pathway to employment. So supported employment ETP, you can be in along with community-based pre-voc and DayHab. You can have respite, you can have community hab, as long as you're living at home. All those waiver services, you can have a combination of it. The only two programs you cannot be enrolled in is pathway to employment and supported employment.
Okay.
Any questions? Do we have any questions? I see a few things going on in there.
I was in the chat a little bit. So I'm gonna put all the information for the Brooklyn DD Council mailing list in the chat just as soon as or maybe Trudy or Marjorie, you guys could put it in there. For people to join the mailing list. We share all of these presentations and as well as other like provider availability on the mailing list and a newsletter. So this recording and the presentation will be shared with anyone on the Brooklyn DD Council mailing list. Also, if you email me directly, I can send it to you if you have any other additional questions, but I can't really see everyone's emails right now on the chat. So I'm just gonna put mine. And I can still give you the information if you don't have it right now. Go ahead, Rochelle.
Thanks. First, just to mention to everybody that the Brooklyn DD Council monthly meeting is next Monday morning. And I'll look for the link for those of you who might want to attend. But I had a question, which is I've been hearing a lot about how day programs, day halves, are supposed to have a larger employment preparation component. And I was wondering if you knew more about it or what it would look like.
Absolutely. So Dayab is actually my area of expertise. I would say Dayab and employment combined. So, most Dayabs have some level of employment preparedness as an offering of activity, right? It's supposed to be a combination of services that are supporting people to be social, be out in the community, and make friends and also learn other skills that might help them in areas, for being independent. So that also does include employment. Now, we can't provide specific job readiness training because it's not an allowable service for DayHab, but we can provide in DayHab things like opportunities to go out into the community, things like travel training. Volunteer sites is a very popular thing that they have people like to do. And this would be where people can get that experience before they or while they are doing a discovery-based service. So when you see things like in the ETP, like who would be a candidate, it says stuff like people who have some work and volunteer experience, right? Maybe that's someone who
Mhm.
did like summer youth or something, or they did a internship at school. Pathway people would be people who have a little bit more limited experience, and those people they're talking about are folks that are in the day hab setting, that maybe just go out to a soup kitchen maybe a couple times a month, but they don't really have that much more work experience. They volunteer a lot. Day Habs also will help people learn things like using computers, going to the library, making an email address. Sometimes we go to classes like a financial literacy class or a mock training, mock interview training that is available in the community. These are things that the public has available, the libraries have available. So the Day Hab groups are really good at finding stuff that is happening out in the community to make people feel as comfortable as possible. Um, but also just like figuring out where they might want to work. Like if they're visiting a cafe while they're getting their lunch, like, they can start having the conversation of like, I would like to work in a coffee shop, or no, I would like to work in a restaurant, or no, that's not for me. I'd rather work in a store, and sometimes they visit the stores and they do shopping or whatever as an activity also. So Dayhab is a really good opportunity. I know sometimes people view it as like, well, I don't want to just be in Dayhab and, making arts and crafts all day. Um, Dayab is what people make it. And so if people are exploring that in the community, they will definitely be people that are going to be start making the soft skills steps to employment discovery services. And a lot of people are in Dayab while they're in a discovery service.
Yep.
So it's a good backup support, right? So if someone is in our pathway program, they're also in one of our day habs because it's a wraparound service. And so they can also talk to their day hab staff about what they've been working on, what they're going, what they're doing. And the day hab staff should be working together with whoever is the pathway staff to foster those skills.
Mhm.
And so that it is a good combination for people, for sure. Also, I think one of the things that people don't often think about is a lot of the people that we support do not work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 jobs, right? They might be working 1 or 2 days a week for 4 or 5 hours. So having that social aspect, having those other community opportunities, or even just to talk about what I did at work with my friends really does help them to maintain employment and um if they don't have a job, right, it kind of keeps their mind of like, well, I'm gonna keep trying, right? My friend is working here. I'm gonna also apply to work there.
Right.
Or it motivates other people to share their experience. Also, a lot of people we support sometimes work like seasonal jobs. And so
Mhm.
like when they're not working, like winter season is a very popular time. And when they're not working, like who's gonna be working with them to continue on those soft skills? And it is most likely in a day hab setting. That was a
And
good question. Thank you, Rochelle.
yeah, and then the other things is that parents and caregivers need to understand is that you have options. There are many providers out there. So a day hab in one agency may not be suitable, but you may find a day hab in another agency that might be more suitable, right? So, nobody wants to sit and do this, but you go, you do your research, you do tours, you ask different questions, you have the individual do a tour and maybe do a trial and it's all based on what is comfortable for your son, your daughter, whoever you're taking care of, right? So you want to make sure that you do that as well because there
Okay.
are options.
We have a little bit more specifics on some of the discovery base, but again, we're keeping things basic. We don't want to overwhelm anyone with information.
Yeah. So again, we're just going to go community-based pre-vocational services. You could hear CBPV or community pre-voc. A lot of people say that. It's a limited amount of time, can be provided at a program or non-integrated sites. Should take place primarily in the community, focus on vocational skills, community work experiences, flexible schedule, day based on specific work related activities, rarely a full day. It's usually maybe 3 to 4 hours a day, most of the days. I'll go next slide.
Okay.
Again, pathway deployment, like Pilar and I said earlier, it may be more suitable for somebody who has an interest and did not have a lot of work experience in the past. Again, Pathway to Employment is a time-limited, person-centered, comprehensive career and vocational planning and support services. The goal of this service is to help people develop a vocational plan with an identified career path to obtain competitive and integrated employment in the future. Uses an individual career and vocational planning process to identify the person's vocational strengths and interests. The service includes community vocational experiences and support services, usually 1 to 2 4 internship sites ranging from 10 to 25 hours, each to conduct assessments and job readiness skills training. The outcome of Pathway to Employment is a career, vocational, and transitional plan document, which includes the next steps of achieving self-employment or competitive integrated employment at or above the applicable state or federal minimum wage. And as you can see, between community pre-voc and for pathway to employment, they both are very time limited. What we don't want is for people to come into these programs and get stuck, right? We want them to learn the skills, we want them to attain the skills, and then literally achieve and move on to gain integrated employment in the community. Now you have employment training program, which is also called ETP. As I said before, in order for you to be in the ETP program, you do have to be enrolled in a supported employment program. And specifically, ETP is to obtain various perspectives on individuals' backgrounds, progress, skills, abilities, preferences, experience, and support needs. Series of job-specific situational assessments and progress reports are completed during this time. In this time, you have an interview with the parents, you have an interview with maybe somebody in the community the person chooses. And this is all to get background information, right? So many students and many of our children, most of our children, they will act a certain way at home, but then act certain, in different areas. So perfect situation, we had an individual who was in Dahab and, had some issues going on, but as soon as we moved them into a community pre-voc program and they were able to go out a little bit more and do different things and had a goal of getting into supported employment, the behaviors and the idea and the thought process changed, right? So they have different behaviors and different characters in different areas. So we do various interviews with different people in order to get those perspectives of the person's character, as you could say. And again, it's to collect the information about the individual's practical work performance by stimulating a work environment at a location in the community that exposes them to realistic expectations in career areas they may also enjoy. Again, everybody says, I want to work, I want to work, I want to work. During this process, they get a little bit of reality of, hey, yeah, you want to work, that's fine, but there's also rules. The employer has rules and regulations that have to be followed. There's certain ways that we have to professionalism at the work site. These are all the things that they would learn and we can assess while they're doing their assessments. Obtain information about the individual's interests, motivators, interpersonal soft skills, independence, behavior, physical ability, self-care skills, safety awareness, and support needs through direct observation. Person supported is paid through funding from OPWDD. If the placement is successful, the person is hired by the employer and added to their payroll, which is something that I touched on earlier. And again, like I said, during the assessment process, once it's all done, we can then say, well, these are the skills, these are that will be suitable for employment. Hey, let's talk about some other skills that we need to work on. And again, you can follow up and you can add additional supports through Dahab or community pre-voc that would also help and support those skills that they need to continue to work on. Then, after we've done this wonderful discovery and we have a vocational goal and plan in place, we then go into what's called supported employment, right? So now you have the intensive SEMP and you have extended SEMP, which is two different areas. Intensive SEMP is where a person will be assigned a job developer and a job coach. Then the job developer will work based off the vocational plan that was created in the discovery, which will give them an idea of what a suitable placement would be, like the perfect setting, take into consideration the person's interests and their skill set. The job developer will then go out, speak to various employers, look at various opportunities, look at the tasks of the opportunities that are available, that are open, and match them with the skill set of the person, right? And the goal is to making a good job match. Again, it's to make the person happy, to make sure that the individual is going to sustain and maintain their employment. And everybody wants to be at a location where they're happy. They want to get up and they want to be happy to go to work. So that is the goal. The job coach or the job developer. Sometimes you have what's called employment specialist. That's another person that would also assist in this process, would assist with interviewing preparation. So they will do mock interviews, give them sample questions that an employer may ask them, and then they will go through the back and forth process, say this is the appropriate questions, and then sit in on the interview if they're allowed, because sometimes employers won't allow a staff person to sit in on the interview, but we're going to prep them as best as our abilities can. Once employment is obtained, the job coach will provide travel training, coach the individual at 100% until the person is comfortable. So the goal is job coach goes in, they learn the job, they train the individual. It could be by verbal prompting, it could be by modeling, it could be by actually physically doing the job where the person may actually need to learn that specific task. After that's done, the job coach will stay on the job, have a conversation with the employer. They will sit there, they will provide the coaching at 100%, and then slowly but surely we would fade out. So we may do 100% for maybe 3-4 weeks. If we see that the person is doing very well, we may reduce it to maybe 80% and then to 75 and continue going down and phase out of that coaching process to make sure that the person is stable. If that person is stable and the employer is okay with the reduction of the job coaching services, then they move into what's called the extended SEMP funding source. And that extended SEMP is long-term. The minimum monthly to provide for an individual in SEMP extended is usually 2 visits a month. However, each case is different. You may have to go there once a week. You may have to go there more than once a week. Sometimes there may be a change in a manager. And if that happens, the person may have to go back into 100% coaching. So the coach will actually go back and provide that 100% coaching. Coaching is coaching and never ends. As long as the person is at this job and maintains the job, if there is a need for coaching supports, the coach will always be there.
All right. So, are there any other options that may work better for me? We talked a little bit about if I don't qualify for Access VR or if I'm not interested in job readiness training and or maybe I know exactly what I want to do, right? There are absolutely a variety of different programs and services that are available through the city and through the state. As we mentioned, we have an Employment First initiative, so there are a lot of different opportunities out there available. Other programs are often meant to be for a period of a few weeks or a few months. They're related to a specific job or a field and may have age or other requirements. Some other kinds of employment programs include Department of Youth and Community Development, DYCD. They offer youth job-specific training, and it's offered through New York City. It's a city-funded contract to youth ages 16 to 24 that meet other various criteria. So some of the criteria might be They did not finish high school. They left high school early, or they were working on getting their GED. Maybe there are parents and they are 16 to 24 and they have a child. Maybe they have different medical needs. For whatever reason, right? There is a list of criteria, and you do not have to have a developmental disability to participate. So some of these programs have a mix of people that are, have developmental disabilities or do not. Um, Often we refer people from school that are leaving high school. Maybe they want to leave early or they do not want to stay until 21 or 22. Like most people that are in District 75 have the opportunity to. This provides classroom learning, on-site internships, and then 1 year follow-up for support with job placement. Like I said, developmental disability is not required. Some examples for DYCD programming. I'm going to speak just of the ones that I'm familiar with at HRC. We have training to become a direct support professional. We have training for concrete flooring and polishing. We have training for office administration in government offices, city government specifically. And then we also have like a GED track training program. And those are through our Advance and Earn and Train and Earn programs. DYCD has many, many Advance and Earn and Train and Earn programs throughout the city, not only at HRC, at many agencies. You can just go directly to the DYCD website and find out where their programs are available and which programs if you're interested in something different. CSVT is OPWDD eligible job specific training. It's called career specific vocational training. We didn't mention it on here because it's a little bit different in the eligibility process. Or I guess in the steps to obtain the program. Usually, I would say from my experience, it's been people that we have already been supporting in support of employment, and we make that recommendation to them because it's specific to a job. However, it's offered in cohorts and provided through a support team of multi-agency providers. So, the main example right now that we have is a janitorial training and environmental services training program. It's a CSVT and it's a collaboration of HRC, Goodwill, and what's the other one? I'm so sorry. Jillian, what's the other agency?
I actually did not know there was another agency. I actually thought it
Oh,
was
then
just
it's just us.
HRC and Goodwill.
I think
Yeah.
it's maybe it's vested. It's vested. There you go. So Vested is like a state funded entity that I think they're providing the funding for it. Goodwill is providing the
The
educational,
the
huh?
funding is through OPW.
Oh, then I don't know then. Maybe the
Yeah.
job placement Vested is providing.
The placement is through ETP.
You know what? I don't know, actually. Don't quote me, guys. I'm really sorry.
It's
Never
a very
mind.
complicated
It's a
program.
very complicated program. I'm really sorry. But it's a collaboration, as what I went to say, between multi different agencies that are providing their piece of the
Yes.
puzzle, right? So HRC has, I know, been providing space for classroom training, as well as some of the on-site learning opportunities through our Hudson River Services Company. I know Goodwill has been doing a lot of the recruitment for the program to help people get signed up and eligible, and it
Mhm.
moves around the city. That's another piece that makes it a little bit more complicated. So it's not always in Brooklyn, right? Sometimes it's in Brooklyn, sometimes it's in the Bronx, sometimes it's in Manhattan. I believe the plan is to always have one running in Manhattan. Um, because that's a centralized, I guess, location where we would run it. But that's another reason. Ages are 18 and up, and you must be enrolled in waiver services. It's not for anyone that is not LPWGD eligible, and they have to be in the waiver service. It's a combination of classroom learning, on-site internship, and job placement. DOH and DOHMH is Department of Health or the Department of Health and Mental Health Services. They're offered supports through the Department of Health for people with some physical disabilities and or mental health diagnoses. They have more specific needs when it comes to employment, and they will point people in the direction to some of the other services and supports that are specific for people that have mental health diagnosis or physical disabilities. Another great resource is the public library and the offices for the mayor's office for people with disabilities, MOPD. And then lastly, um, is OPWDD self-direction. So people who are eligible for OPWDD services and enroll in self-directed services can use their budget towards community classes or training or other educational resources that may help someone with their employment goals. Um, we, as providers, are limited in some of the job training that we can give people, especially when it is job specific. So I have a picture here of culinary training. And we have, that's an area that is really hard for us to kind of break into. I know we have some programs that are starting soon. We have another CSVT program, which will be culinary. And then we also have some other companies and services that we know. One of our chair members, Nigel, he works for Kindred Bakery. They take self-direction and they're teaching people in the kitchen how to make these items, how to make these recipes, and hopefully get job placement in a kitchen. So that's a big one that's really popular. This also would apply for people that are interested in working in the arts. A lot of times people come to us with a desire to work, in film or theater or dance. And like, it's not an area that we are well versed in providing job training for, right? Nor do we have the mechanisms. So if someone took a class, in the community on computers, editing, music, and they use their self-direction budget, and this would help them to obtain employment, they could do that. So that's another example for anyone that is interested in something that is maybe not as traditional for employment. I'm going to stop the presentation because I know we have some very specific questions. So I'm going to just stop recording first off. And I don't want anyone to, get off on their personal questions. So stopping the recording now, and we're going to get into a little discussion and Q&A. Why is this not working? Okay.